Hello guys, I hope wherever you're watching us from you're having a great time. This is AfriPost and welcome to today's video. Just the other day, the African Union held its summit in Adisababa, Ethiopia. And African Union is an organization that holds 55 African countries, and its main aim is fostering unity within the continent and fighting for the development of the continent. But then it has come to the realization of many who are attending these meetings that African Union is being controlled by external forces. For instance, Israel requested to be granted an observer status of the African Union so that it is a member that looks into the activities that African Union is conducting across different parts of the continent. Then again, we've seen different multilateral organizations like the World Bank and IMF funding important activities that African Union is conducting. From these activities, it is very evident that African Union has not fulfilled its purpose of ensuring that it remains loyal and true to African ideals. Now, I came across this video where an individual who went and attended this summit decided to expose some of the ills that are happening when these summits are conducted. Let's watch this clip and then react to it after the video.
Right, so the conference is over now here in Addis Ababa. It's been very interesting. Good to come to this country. One thing that I've learned about this country, Ethiopia, is the fact that Africa can build by itself without guidance from the West. It's a beautiful city. It's got great infrastructure. They do not have load shedding in this country, and they've built this country from scratch as Africans without any help from Europeans because they were never colonized. And that is something that I found interesting. They also say that they do not have foreign banks in this country. And because they do not have foreign banks in this country, they use their own banks, their own savings, their own capital to build the infrastructure and to build this nation. That is a message to many African countries that we should be looking at building our own country and our own countries without waiting for European debt and without waiting for debt from other countries. This brings me now to the issue of the AU. It was a very interesting conference, but many leaders did not come. Museveni did not even bother to come. He sent somebody junior. The Malawian president did not come. I did not see the Botswana president. And in fact, many people who've always come here have said that they felt that most presidents did not come. We did not even see the festivities and activities that usually go with this conference. And the question is why? And so when we asked some of the people why the Museveni didn't come, they said Museveni said unless there starts to be reforms at the AU and unless there starts to be concrete decisions made on real important issues, he doesn't find the reason to come. And then we also have the Francophone countries that did not come. The other issue that I saw is that the issues that they discuss here tend to lack what is important for African countries. Number one, they have this emphasis on partners, and these partners oftentimes are Western nations, the World Bank, and these Western institutions that are known to underdevelop Africa. And the question we're asking the AU is, why do you keep partnering with enemies of Africa to try and develop Africa? For instance, the World Bank is lending money to the AU to create a think tank for Africans, a think tank for the AU, but they won't even allow us to have money to industrialize. The World Bank is known for deindustrializing Africa, over-indebting Africa. So why are they still our partners? Why do we take money from them? And why don't we emulate Ethiopia that does not use Western banks to develop itself? Another issue is food. They are partnering with institutions that want to bring GMOs onto the African continent. They do not talk about institutions like AGRA that have taken a very important role on the continent to make rules on how it is that we grow our food. They are not making anything or any policies to nullify UPO that gives precedence to Western seed companies to produce our seeds at the expense of our farmers and our nations. We also talk to them about the issues of medicines. They keep talking about medicines coming from Western companies, partnering with Western companies, and yet HIV has been spread on this continent together with many other diseases through vaccines that were given. This is something that is not a conspiracy theory. Listen to Saima, listen to Walter Basson. These are issues that were held in South African courts. These are issues in the public domain where Saima executives, Saima soldiers admit that they used vaccines to vaccinate Africans and to give them HIV. These are topics and discussions that were not had here at the AU. Our leaders continue to partner with these people that want to destroy African life. And the question we're asking is, what's the point of all these meetings if our leaders are still going to talk with the enemy? And then, of course, there's the European peace facility that I spoke about. It's a facility that seeks to give Africans, individual African nations, weapons to fight terrorism or to fight their neighbors. This money used to go to the AU when it used to be called the Africa Peace Facility. But now those monies will be given by European nations directly to African countries. And this is also why we're still seeing Western bases in African countries. We've got a person like Ruto, pretends to be a Pan-Africanist. But Ruto has got two military bases, the Americans and the British. The Americans have two bases, the British have one. Why would a Pan-Africanist like Ruto still have US bases on African soil? Why would the Ghanaian president still have American bases on his soil? Why would Zambia be putting AFRICOM on their soil? And why do we come to these meetings when we've got sellouts like these leaders sitting among us?
Now, after listening to that video, one thing that comes to my mind is that colonization did not end in Africa, because these European countries continue to control every affair that our continent is undertaking. For instance, if they have had control of the African Union and our heads of states are always congregating at Addis Ababa to have resolutions on how Africa is going to go ahead in different spheres of life, then it means that they are having that capability of determining for Africa what it will do or what it will be in the next 20 to 30 years. And this truly does not work to serve the intentions of why this African Union was created. Remember that in May 25th, 1963, the Organization of African Unity was created to have Africa fight for development and growth of the continent. It also wanted that Africa gets to unite as a continent and we avoid and eliminate these borders that were created by Europeans. But then, if you look at how we have developed over the years, you understand that different countries have ceased to think about integration of Africa as a continent. Because how do you explain the fact that different countries, neighboring countries, can have movement restrictions? Why must we be restricted to move from one country to another? With the understanding that these countries were not the original creations of this continent. They were just things that the West created for us so that they could easily find a way of micromanaging our affairs. As the speaker says there, these Western nations like United States continue to have military bases in our continent. He highlighted Kenya, where President Ruto has always projected himself as a Pan-Africanist, somebody who wants Africa to grow and to be self-dependent. That is why he talked about reforms of the multilateral organizations, because they are skewed to ensure that Africa fails. But then, if you look at him keenly, you'd understand that he was double-faced, because at one point he's supporting the West, and then at another point he's also supporting African affairs. And this really puts to question the deep desire of African leaders, whether African leaders are really committed to the unity that was proclaimed by people like Kwame Nkrumah. There are certain areas of interest that the Western nations have continued to hold our countries on. For instance, they are saying that they are coming to us and they want to partner with African Union to create a think tank that decides on the kind of development that are supposed to take place in the continent. This does not really fall into place. Since when did the West have an opportunity to come and plan for us the kind of development that we need? Because this will mean that Africa will not have its own issues held and discussed at the table. Because if Western nations fund our activities in the continent, it means they will be having that capability of calling for any actions to take place in the continent, and we will not have any right to speak against them. Another area of partnership that African Union has been depending on Western nations on is food security. One question is, do you really think Western nations are sincere with this desire to create an Africa that is self-sufficient in terms of food? This is not the truth. Africa is being pulled into the slaughterhouse of food insecurity, and this is why their companies are funding activities in Africa to have our countries allow genetically modified foods so that we eat foods that are not natural, we eat foods that can have some health challenges for us, we eat food that are controlled by other people. Remember, if their countries control the seeds, we can be told when to plant and when not to plant. And if we don't have these seeds, we cannot have food for ourselves. And that is why they're trying to pull us away from our original and natural foods that we ate as African people. And they want us to eat their new food that they're bringing in the market. And this is something that African leaders must wake up and see. And for this, I tend to really support what Museveni is doing in Uganda. President Museveni has said that he is not ready to come and attend the African Union meetings because he has realized that these meetings are doing a bidding for the Western nations. And he has said that he will not be controlled by Western nations. He is somebody who is pro himself, he is pro Uganda, and is pro his country. He cannot be controlled by the West in any way. These nations are not happy to see Africa grow. And that is why United States is forcing its ideas on Africa, it's forcing its culture on Africa, it's forcing its ideals on Africa. And this must really be called out by every sane African who really desires for Pan-African ideals to be instilled in the continent. I don't know what you think about this topic, but for me, I believe that the Western nations, led by United States, are not happy to see Africa grow, and therefore, it is in their interest that they make this organization weak and non-functional. Please tell us your opinion down in the comment section. If you're watching us for the first time and you have not subscribed, please subscribe to this channel, like this video, and also share. Thank you, and may the good Lord bless you. Goodbye.